Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Chainsaw Reacts podcast, episode number 45. And today, guys, we are covering one topic and one topic only, and that is Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice spoiler review slash discussion. If you have not seen Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, click away now. This review contains major spoilers. And also in the description of this video, it'll be hidden, but you have to open up the description, will also be all the time starts for all the things I'm discussing in this spoiler review slash discussion. So if you've not seen the film, click away now. Do not click on anything else. Click away from this video because I'll be spoiling the entire film in this review. So if you're still here, you've seen the film, you want to hear my thoughts about all the spoilery things that happen in Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, you are here. Go to the time starts in the description if you want to skip to a particular topic. But I'm starting off with the biggest one of them all, so not wasting any time. You've been warned, everybody who's still here. If you've not seen the film, you're going to be spoiled right now, okay? Are you gone? You better be. Let's get into the first thing, which is Superman's death. Oh my God. They did it. I honestly didn't expect they would actually do this at all. When they announced that Doomsday was in the film officially with the second trailer, or people call it the third trailer, but technically the December Doomsday trailer, essentially, they revealed a giant monster that kind of looks like Doomsday. And then everyone started to think, are they going to kill Superman in this movie? His second film in the DC Extended Universe, the DC Cinematic Universe, as I call it. They're not going to kill him, right? They're not going to kill him. They do. But the ending we'll get to in a second. But what I think is very intriguing is that DC had the balls to kill Superman in his second film in the DC universe. It's crazy to think DC thought this was going to work. I mean, we see what happens at the end. We can interpret that any way we want, but basically they used Doomsday as a way to kill Superman. I just didn't think they would do it. I honestly thought the film would end with Doomsday dead or just unconscious and he's still alive. And there you go. There's the Trinity, and now we're going to get the Justice League film. But they killed him off for a good bit. There was a Superman funeral and a Clark Kent funeral. Now, it was kind of implied that Clark Kent's actual body, Superman's body, was actually being buried out in the farm where he grew up when he was a kid when he landed on Earth. So that whole parade and that whole army salute thing, that there was no body in there from what we're implying from what Bruce Wayne said in the film. So that's pretty interesting there. And to see Lois Lane grab grab a handful of dirt and drop it on the coffin, and she has the wedding ring. Martha Kent gave her a gift that obviously Superman sent to back home, and it contained a wedding ring, which I'm like, oh, it makes it even more painful. And then let's get to the actual ending of what actually happens at the end of the film, because the Superman death, I didn't expect it to happen, but it's been rumored for a bit ever since Doomsday was officially confirmed. Now, Doomsday's been rumored for a while, but we'll get to Doomsday later in this podcast, as you see in the time starts. We'll get to him a little bit later. But I just didn't expect them to kill Superman. I didn't expect that route. But what they do at the end of this film can be interpreted as two different things. There's been two big theories going on surrounding what the ending of this film means. At the very end of the film, we're focused on that dirt. The dirt rises and then it cuts to black. It could be interpreted that Superman is still alive, or it's interpreted that he will come back in Justice League Part 1, but he won't be alive immediately when the film starts, essentially. Like, they'll find a way to bring him back, but it won't be at the beginning of Justice League Part 1, my personal theory. Or it could be interpreted that he's still alive. What I read online from the actual plot of the film on Wikipedia, this is Wikipedia, so take it as it is, but it says that you could hear a faint heartbeat. I don't remember a faint heartbeat, but the dirt rising is a very good indication that something's going on. So maybe at the beginning of Justice League Part 1, we get a scene where he rises out of his grave and he's still alive, and and they both witness it. Like Lois witnessed it, and the two people that witness it also is Wonder Woman and Batman. Bruce Wayne, Princess Diana, they see him rise out of the grave immediately as it cuts to black. He just rises out of the grave. They could do that, but I think personally, the dirt moving indicates to me personally that he will be back in Justice League Part 1, but not immediately. But overall, my thoughts about them killing him, I didn't expect it. I'm quite shocked that DC did it. But I think that it was a good move in story-wise because they're doing the death of Superman storyline. Well, kind of, not exactly what it is, but I mean Doomsday did kill him technically in the film, so I guess you could say that big element is there. But I think that what is ultimately going to be interesting is how they bring him back if he's not instantly alive at the beginning of Justice League Part 1. So we'll see what happens on that front. So there you have it. Superman's death. Shocking, crazy, didn't expect it, but there it was. Next thing we're going to talk about is the Batman v Superman fight. Let's talk about the fight. Oh my god. The trailers have been showing teases and little hints and stuff and showing them punching each other, kicking, all that kind of stuff. The fight got pretty brutal at a point. And there's one particular thing, I think it was shown on Jimmy Kimmel, if I'm not mistaken, where at the end of the clip after Superman throws Batman into his own bat signal, and then Batman does his typical, trick where he throws the smoke grenade and he's not there. Superman comes up, and then Batman shoots the kryptonite smoke grenade, technically. Superman obviously catches it. That was the whole point. And then as the screen cut to black on the clip, the film continues, and then the green smoke, and then he's affected by the kryptonite gas. And you could tell by his reaction, he has never experienced anything like that before. And to see Batman immediately use that smartly, obviously, very smart, because if he wouldn't have used that thing, if he would have waited off and not used it right away, Superman might have killed him. He might have killed him. It was just, wow. Just brutal stuff. And then he goes on and starts beating the crap out of Superman, punching him, kicking him, elbowing him, and then kicks him through that top window of the building. We've seen that millions of times in trailers, but it was a cool shot. And then eventually, the fight keeps continuing. They're running into each other, and then literally, I think it was about a minute and a half, maybe a little bit shorter. Batman's punched Superman, and then you hear the noise, and where Superman is getting back his strength, he's not affected by the kryptonite anymore. And you see on Batman's face how he's like, holy shit. Like, that's what he was thinking. He didn't have to say it. His facial expression is, oh my god. And then he gets, the full force of Superman. And luckily, as the fight continues and Batman and Superman are fighting on a lower level, he gets that other grenade. He shoots it again, hits Superman. And then what really cool part that I like is that when Batman gets up, part of his face, facial cover or whatever, his mask is broken, and he grabs a sink, a sink off a wall, and slams it on Superman's head while he's affected by the kryptonite grenade. And then we get down to the very bottom where we saw in the actual film itself in a scene where Batman created a kryptonite spear, which is used later, but not on Superman. And then Batman wraps around a cord around his feet, drags Superman, swings him around, hits him on pillars, and lands him on the ground, and grabs that spear and goes up to him and is about to stab him. That's when Lois comes in, and right before that, that's when Superman starts talking about Martha. And it goes back to the whole thing about Bruce's mom is Martha, and Superman was saying Martha Kent, and that really changed the dynamic of their fight. But what I like to say, because that's a whole nother plot device, which we'll get to with the Lex Luthor discussion a little bit later with the Jesse Eisenberg Lex Luthor thing. We'll talk about all the plot surrounding that fight, essentially, because, it was all his master plan. But anyways, what was really exciting and interesting that DC did with this fight, and a lot of people really have not been discussing this a lot, at least not that I've been seeing, is that they clearly gave us the winner. Batman won that fight. Superman clearly could have won the fight if Batman did not have kryptonite and didn't have kryptonite smoke grenades and didn't have the kryptonite spear. So if Batman would not have went and trashed LexCorp and got that humongous piece of kryptonite from Lex Luthor's office and from his, place, then Batman would not have won. But since Batman is Batman, and of course he thinks of everything, then clearly Batman wins the fight. So yes, Superman is obviously superior with strength, but Batman is the world's greatest detective. And of course, he's going to win. So I'm glad that even though some people might hate that thing where Batman can't beat Superman, they found a way to make it realistic and made it work and showed that this is the real Batman, because this Batman found a way to defeat a god in a sense. He could have killed him, and he almost did. But thank God Lois showed up. So there you have that. Next thing I want to talk about in this spoiler review discussion is Ben Affleck as Batman. I'm also going to be covering Alfred, Jeremy Irons in this part as well. So first off, let's talk about Ben Affleck as Batman. I said in my non-spoiler review, he is amazing in this role. When he was first announced, like I said in my non-spoiler review, and I'll say it again, when he was first announced, oh my god, the negativity, the hatred, the backlash when he was first announced. And then when trailers started to come out, the first trailer, like it was back like I think in April of 2015, there wasn't really there was dialogue at the end where he's like, "Tell me, do you bleed?" And the Superman drops down, black screen, "You will," and then you see the logo. When you see Ben Affleck in the suit, he's coming out of the rubble, which is at the end of the film, where we see the context of that shot. But you see him in the actual bat suit, not the armor suit, but the actual black Batman suit. Oh, he looks so good. And people started turning at that point like, oh my god, he looks so good as Batman. And then you heard him talk. Some people actually speculated, like myself, I actually speculated, well, maybe that's not even Batman's real voice. Maybe they're tricking us. That's not his actual voice. And it is his real voice, his Batman voice in the film. But, seeing him in the armor suit, seeing him in the regular suit in that first trailer, turned some people. Then you see him talking more and interacting as Bruce Wayne in the whole party discussion between Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent, where Clark Kent's asking about different stuff and all that kind of different stuff about the Daily Planet or about the Bat Vigilante of Gotham and all that kind of stuff, and they're talking back and forth. In the Doomsday trailer, we see a lot more interaction of him as Bruce Wayne, so we get to see the Batman aspect and the Bruce Wayne aspect, and then we get to see more footage with the final trailer where he's taking out bad guys, which is toward the end of the film. Basically, to say all that, to say this: Ben Affleck is Batman, okay? He's not pretending to be Bruce Wayne. He's not pretending to be Batman. He is Batman, in my personal opinion. Is he the quintessential Batman, the best Batman we've ever seen on live action? I can't exactly say, but I'll say this: it's pretty damn close. Now, maybe with the Justice League Part 1 film, maybe with the solo Batman film, maybe at that point I will personally say he is the quintessential, the best Batman we've ever seen live action. But for right now, he is one of the best we've ever seen. He performs so well in this role. You get to see the darkness in him. You see the rage, the anger. Even Alfred says that in the thing where, good men turn cruel, essentially talking about Ben Affleck / Batman. That's the way I interpret it, what he was saying. But you get to see this older Batman, which we've not seen in the actual films, and you see him. He's slowly building the rage, and he's slowly building to something where he's about to explode. And it's really cool to see him working out in the Batcave, essentially working on his computer, doing all these crazy stuff, being a detective, essentially, which is an aspect we hardly see in Batman live action films. We see them a lot in the Batman video games, the Arkham games. We see them in the Batman animated series. But we've not really seen him do a lot of detecting and all this kind of stuff, and being the world's greatest detective that much in the live action film until this movie. So I have to give them aspects for that. So Ben Affleck as Batman, he is phenomenal. A lot of great fight scenes. He really played this role well, and what's really good is that you know when it's a good actor when he has the cape and cowl on, and you can see the facial expressions from his mouth. You can tell his facial expression at a particular moment, whether it's the armored suit or the regular bat suit. I love what they did with Batman in this film. I really cannot wait for the solo Batman film, whether it's set before or after the events of Batman v Superman. I can't wait to see what direction they go, because it was a phenomenal performance from Ben Affleck. He really showed all those people hating on his casting that I can do this and I can do it amazingly well, and he did. I want to talk a bit about Alfred in this film. I talked about him briefly in the non-spoiler review, but I feel like Jeremy Irons was a great casting in this film. He was snarky, he was witty, he was going back and forth with Ben Affleck as Batman in a very different way than what we've seen from previous Alfreds in the live-action Batman universe. So I like that he was really involved with building tech, building the suits that he wears, and to see Alfred actually messing with the voice modulator a little bit, wherever he's wearing, excuse me about the hit the mic there, where he's working on the voice modulator when he's wearing the cape and cowl, so he can disguise his voice. It's cool to see him messing with like the tone, like I'm gonna go a little lower, and then it's really cool to see the little aspect just for a few seconds, just to see him toiling with the voice, and so and to see him just interacting with Bruce in a very different way, where he was more involved with all the stuff that he's doing. Because a lot of the times, Alfred in a lot of the older comics and stuff like that, and even the live action films, was not really involved with what Batman does out in the city. This Alfred, Jeremy Irons, is involved, and he is involved in a big way. And he actually takes over the Batjet, or the Batwing, or whatever it's called. I forget what it's called at this exact moment. He takes over to lend off Batman on the second story of that building in order to go save Martha Kent, which is a part of the big story. So it was cool to see him doing that, and I'm hoping that Jeremy Irons comes back in Justice League Part 1, because I think he'll be a great asset to the film, not only for Batman, but possibly interacting with other Justice League members, as he has done in the comic books, and as he's done in the Justice League animated show. So I would love to see Jeremy Irons, Alfred, interact with some of the other Justice League members, like Superman, Wonder Woman, all of them. It'd be cool. So there you have it. Ben Affleck's Batman, epic. Alfred, Jeremy Irons, epic. I love it. I can't wait to see them come back in Justice League Part 1 and the Batman solo film. Cannot wait. Let's get to the next thing, which is Henry Cavill as Superman. We're also going to be covering Lois Lane and Martha Kent, and we'll also talk about a little bit Pa Kent, as I like to call him. Kevin Costner. He died in Man of Steel. He's back for a cameo. But let's start off with Henry Cavill as Superman. Now, say what you will about Man of Steel. I enjoyed the film for what it was. There were some problems with the film, but I enjoyed Henry Cavill's performance as Superman. And yes, there was destruction in Metropolis, but he was barely Superman at that point. So you can't really fault him for not able to really stop all that destruction that went down between him and Zod fighting. Now, say what else you say about the chemistry between him and Lois Lane in Man of Steel, but I feel like in this film, Batman v Superman, that Superman and Lois Lane had a greater connection in this film. They were, living together, and she was completely understanding him being Superman, and you get to see where she trusts him. Now, in Man of Steel, she obviously learns throughout the film that Clark Kent is Superman, but it's cool to see her just accept it and try to be there for him when she can, as much as she personally can. So I love that interaction with that. But Henry Cavill, I think, did a great job. I love what they did with Superman in this movie. Some people have critiques about his performance and critiques about how they used him in the film. I think they used him in a great way, because the events of Man of Steel greatly affects in this film, because they keep asking the question, what should he do? Was he involved with these other things? Should he be held responsible? Should we need a Superman? And the scene that really pushed me over the limit, not because he doesn't say anything in the film. He might have said something in this scene. Scene. He might have said something in this particular scene. I'm not really sure. I'm gonna go watch the film again for sure. But it's the courtroom scene where he walks up and gets to the podium, and I don't think he says anything, but I could be wrong. But when the bomber explodes and lets off the suicide bomb, and then the whole entire Capitol is in flames, and he's just standing there, and you can tell on his face that innocent people have died for no reason, just because people want him dead, which obviously it does not affect him. But it's just such a powerful moment, and it really shows that people will go to great lengths to get rid of him, even though it will not affect him personally, because he is a god amongst men. But I really loved the angle they did in this film with storylines involving around Lex Luthor, revolving around his mom, Martha Kent, which I thought when they revealed she was coming back for this film, that she was just going to have a small role. There was going to be a couple of scenes with her and him talking. Maybe she's involved more than that, but I was really not thinking too much. But then they get her involved with Lex Luthor kidnapping her, which, I'll get to all that stuff in the Jesse Eisenberg Lex Luthor part of this review, but it was cool to see they found a way to include her in the film, and not just, it's Superman's Earth Mother. They found a way to incorporate her with the plot line. You could say it's poorly done, but I felt like it was good to have her in the film and to make her useful, essentially. Lois Lane, I felt, was a great addition as well. I've mentioned in the non-spoiler review how she was really involved with the whole trying to basically frame Superman aspect with the bullets, and with those people working for Lex Luthor at the actual desert site where people died, and they were blaming Superman, which it wasn't his fault for certain people dead or whatever. So I like the fact that they brought her in for that aspect and had her more involved in this film than just Superman's girlfriend that is there kind of the time. They found a way to make Lois more relevant in this film. And the last thing I do want to talk about before I go over to Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, this is gonna be a long podcast. I've already know we're 20 minutes in, and we're not even halfway through all the stuff I want to talk about. But I do want to talk about briefly Kevin Costner's Pa Kent, as I call it, cameo. Now, I did not expect this at all. I did not hear any rumors or rumblings. I've been hearing rumors for a long time about who's in the film, who's not in the film. I never heard one thing about Kevin Costner returning, even though it's a hallucination and he's not really there. I never heard about Kevin Costner cameoing in this film, and he did. It was a great little scene, in my personal opinion. Superman is just climbing a mountain, and then you see this guy throwing rocks on this pile of rocks, and then he goes up, and it's Pa Kent. And it was a beautiful scene. I mean, the story is kind of weird, talking about what he did to help save the farm or whatever, and saying how Martha his world, which it got more relevant where he's saying Martha was my world. A very emotional scene. I just did not expect that at all. I did not expect him to cameo, even though it is a hallucination, but it was a nice little touch to kind of help Superman realize what's important in life, and all that kind of stuff. So he was helping his Earth son, or his Kryptonian son, excuse me, from the dead, essentially. So it was a nice little scene. I was quite surprised. I did not expect it. So I got to give them props for not hearing a damn word about the possibility of him returning in some way. So props to that. So Henry Cavill as Superman, I felt like they did a great job. Even though he was killed off at the end, he could be back immediately, but whatever. I felt like he was used appropriately in this film, and his emotions were definitely felt in this film towards the end with all those plans. My God. So, like I said, Jesse Eisenberg, Lex Luthor discussion. We'll get more into the Superman angle because Lex Luthor's all involved in that shit. Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, another controversial casting as like Ben Affleck. I felt like Gal Gadot in this film was used in a great way. They could have easily shoehorned her into this film and made her just show up randomly and all that kind of stuff. I guess you could say she did show up randomly, but they found a way to incorporate her in a very smooth way, in my personal opinion. We see Lex Luthor hitting Superman. Then we find out as Batman, Bruce Wayne is trying to steal information from Lex Luthor about the White Russian, aka the ship that is carrying the kryptonite, the big piece of kryptonite, to use against Superman at a point. Princess Diana, Wonder Woman, was at the party. She stole the device and she got away from Bruce Wayne, Ben Affleck, Batman, all three of those things. She got away from him, and they found a way to incorporate her because you learn throughout later in the film that on this hard drive that Ben Affleck was trying to steal, Bruce Wayne, God, just say the freaking character name, that Bruce Wayne was trying to get from Lex Luthor, that he finds out that there's a picture of Wonder Woman standing along with these other men in the picture from 1918, and she looks exactly the same that she does today than she did in 1918. Now, what was really cool about this photo that Lex Luthor had of her was that the people standing around her was the cast of Wonder Woman, the standalone film that's coming next year, or a part of the cast at least, the cast that's going to be in 1918. It was great. I thought at first it was just some regular photo of Wonder Woman, and it turns out to be a photo of Wonder Woman along with part of the cast that's going to be in the 1918 settings of the film. I'm like, holy crap, they incorporated a photo. That's pretty awesome. So, does she deliver in this film? Does Gal Gadot deliver as Wonder Woman, Princess Diana? I felt like she did. Her lines, I felt she had some great lines. She had a great moment at a party scene with Bruce Wayne, which I felt like was pretty cool. She kind of flirted with him a little bit. She was being kind of flirty, but she got to the main point. I'm after the same man you are, which I think is Lex Luthor, or maybe it's Superman. No, it's Lex Luthor, because they're both after him for different reasons. And then her as Wonder Woman, when she shows up, that Doomsday Fight, holy Jesus, and she looks good. And what I've been hearing a lot about from spoiler reviews, because it's kind of a spoiler, well, I guess not really, I guess you could say it's not a spoiler per se, but there was one thing that everyone's been praising about Gal Gadot in the Wonder Woman outfit, is that when she's kicked or punched or whatever from Doomsday across the freaking, across and like hitting the ground and tumbling and all that kind of stuff, she's like laying there, and then she looks up and gives this smile, like, bring it on, big man, bring it on. And she goes to grab that sword and goes back to work on Doomsday. So I like the fact that this Wonder Woman doesn't give a shit. She's not going to stop, She got knocked down pretty good, and she smiled and said, bring it on, big boy, and she went back at it. So this film succeeded in, for me personally, I am now more excited after seeing this film. I am now more excited to see the Gal Gadot standalone Wonder Woman film. I cannot wait for her movie. I cannot wait to see what they do because they teased her in this movie like she had more of a role, like more of a bigger role than a cameo. But they just teased and showed her what she can do. But they kept it very vague to the point where it makes you want to see her more, and obviously her film's coming next year, so good on Zack Snyder for giving us not too much Wonder Woman, but enough for us to go, I want to see Wonder Woman, and it's next year. So they have it. I want to take a sip of the drink real fast. My throat is killing me, and then we'll get to the next topic, which is Doomsday. Now, I will go into more of the Doomsday origin and all that kind of stuff that in the next segment, which is Jesse Eisenberg, Lex Luthor. But I want to specifically talk about the Doomsday Fight in this topic. So the Doomsday Fight obviously is with the Trinity. And what I really liked about this is that Doomsday kept kind of evolving. Like, he kept exploding with power, like electrical energy, like it looked like a force field, but it's a field, like a circular field of just lightning and destruction. And every time he did this, essentially, he was ripping off his skin and getting more bones popping out of him and becoming more stronger. Like, then you can tell that his body, like, whenever he was getting hit by Wonder Woman's sword or getting punched or getting kicked or whatever, you saw where his part of the body where he was getting hit was like pulsing red a little bit, which to me felt like that he's learning to adapt to be getting hit there, essentially to where he's getting more powerful there. When Wonder Woman cuts off his arm, instead of an arm growing back, he grows back a spike, which he ultimately uses to kill Superman in the film. But we get to see where he's adapting and getting stronger and ripping his skin off and using this force field to do these crazy attack. The fighting between Superman and Wonder Woman and him is phenomenal. Doomsday. Obviously, Batman can't do a lot. He jumps away and does some pretty cool, maneuvers to basically, escape Doomsday's blast and all this kind of stuff and getting away from him because Batman can't do a lot in this fight. Now, what I really like that he did is that after he was hit a couple times, after Doomsday was hit a couple times, Batman shoots, I think, his last kryptonite grenade, because I think he only made 3. He used 2 on Superman, but he used his third one on the Doomsday creature, which ultimately helps Superman drive the kryptonite spear through Doomsday, and we know how that ends. Doomsday dies, Superman also dies in the fight as well, but I felt like the fight was great. A lot of great cinematography. I really wish that sometimes, I personally think the 3-hour version that's coming out on Blu-ray will have more of that fight in there, because I felt like they cut back on that a little bit because the fight could have been a lot longer, but the fight was pretty badass nonetheless. So I'm hoping the 3-hour version has like an extra 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 minutes of that fight included in the rated R 3-hour version, because I want to see that fight go on for quite a bit more. But what we got, it was great seeing Superman and Wonder Woman teaming up to take on Doomsday, and seeing Batman evading and using the grenade, the kryptonite grenade, which is pretty awesome. So Doomsday fight, awesome shit, love it. Next thing we're going to talk about, which is another controversy, but also a lot of stuff happening in this topic, so let's get right to it. Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. Now, say what you want to say, controversial casting once again, and I said this in my non-spoiler review, and I'll say it again. This movie should have been called Batman v Superman, controversial casting of justice, because Ben Affleck casting as Batman Bruce Wayne, controversial. Jesse Eisenberg cast as Lex Luthor, controversial. Gal Gadot cast as Wonder Woman, controversial. Chainsaw Reacts casted as the new Superman, controversial. That really didn't happen, but if it did, would have been awesome. Am I right? The bearded Superman. Anyways, Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. Interesting portrayal. I said this in my non-spoiler review. It's interesting. It's not bad, in my personal opinion. There are people that love this film but hate his portrayal. I love the film, and I think it's interesting. You see more of his crazy side, I guess you call it that. I mean, he really goes off the rails in a big way. Now, I kept alluding to, I'll be getting to all this plot device stuff with Lex Luthor, Jesse Eisenberg, because you saw the film, you saw how it all tied together. We learned at the end of the film that Lex Luthor was the one that kept sending photos to Clark Kent about justice and all this kind of stuff, and basically Batman's victims of the burn and, his him, branding his villains or branding the bad guys. And then you see Lex Luthor also sending Batman things that were supposedly written by the guy who lost his legs at the Metropolis attack, essentially 2 years ago. And we all learned that Lex Luthor was sending all these things out to Batman and Superman. Like, he knew the identities of both of them, and he wanted them to fight to the death. And so what Lex Luthor does, instead of just, getting them more riled up against each other, he goes and steals Martha Kent, kidnaps her, and holds her in a building and has her tied up and has her, basically a very uncomfortable position, essentially. He has her mouth tied up or whatever, mouth covered with like a cloth or whatever. It's pretty brutal stuff. He has these photos and he shows them to Superman when he shows up because, Lex Luthor gets Superman's attention by pushing Lois Lane off the freaking building. And, of course, Clark Kent, Superman, saves her, goes up and says, "I want to take you down, Lex Luthor." And he's like, "Nope, you can't. I have your mother." Then he's throwing photos on the ground of her in very uncomfortable positions, like kidnap positions. Like, it's bad. Like, she looks like she's beaten up, and it's brutal. And then essentially, if you kill me, Superman, your mom dies. Okay? And if you try to, and if you don't kill Superman within kill Superman, if you don't kill yourself, if you don't kill Batman in an hour, Superman, she will also die. So essentially, there's no way out of it. He has to go fight Batman. Now, some people had issues with why they fought. People thought that they would fight because their ideological differences about how they deal with justice. Like, that's how people thought they were going to be fighting. Like, that's the reason why they would be fighting. But I really like this angle because it makes Lex Luthor incorporated into the storyline. It was him all along. He was the one sending them photos and sending these crazy things, building up the rage against one another. Now, Batman was more mad than ever to fight Superman. And when Superman lands, instead of Superman being Batman or, "Look, I need your help. Lex Luthor has my mother," he calls him Bruce. He says Bruce. I'm like, oh my God, he said his name. "Bruce, I need your help." And then, of course, we see that Batman has some tricks up his sleeves, and that's when the fight goes down. But obviously, we get to see towards the end of that fight when he says Martha to Batman. He's like, "Why are you saying that name?" Lois Lane pops up. "That's his mother's name. That's his mother's name." Then Ben Affleck, Batman. Ben Affleck, Jesus Christ, Chainsaw reacts. "What are you doing?" Bruce Wayne, Batman, starts re-envisioning his mother and father's death. And his father's last words is Martha. And then he hears the word Martha from Superman and realizes this is a man. This is a god, but he's also a man who has a woman he loves because Lois Lane pops up, and he also has a mother that loves him very much. And so, to know that Lex Luthor pinned them to fight. Now, obviously, Lex Luthor pinned Superman to go fight Batman. And Batman wanted to fight Superman the whole time. So Batman was waiting for Superman to show up. Batman was waiting. But Superman went to go fight him not on his own accord, but because Lex Luthor told him, "If you don't, I'm going to kill your mother." So I like the fact that they tied that all in together and made, like I said, once again, Martha Kent more involved in this film. But also back to Lex Luthor, the whole Doomsday angle of him creating Doomsday. There were some critics that I do want to mention real fast, that critics were complaining that there was no real build-up to Doomsday. It just happened automatically. I'm like, no, it did not. Could it have been developed better? Sure, it could have been developed better. But the way it was is this. The beginning of the film, Lex Luthor hates Superman. He's afraid of him. He wants kryptonite. He wants that huge rock of kryptonite to be delivered to his place. And of course, Senator Finch, I think her name's Senator Finch, whatever, says, "No, I'm not doing it for you." So he finds a way to get it over illegally, essentially, with his helpers. And Lex Luthor gets access to the crashed Kryptonian ship. And he gets in there. He takes Zod's body, which he also asks for. So he's planning this stuff out. He enters the water. He brings Zod's body into the water, and the water gets the DNA of Zod's body. He cuts his own wrist and puts the blood on Zod's face. And then this machine starts, I guess, forming Doomsday. It's very vague, but what it does is that it shows that he was creating this creature regardless. Like, I feel like that he was creating Doomsday to fight the bigger threat, which was going to be Darkseid. That was coming because I think it's early in the film that you get to see Jesse Eisenberg in the ship, and the ship says we have data of over 100,000 planets, and then he says teach me, which I assume because he mentions it towards the end of the film that he's coming. Who's coming, you say? Darkseid. Darkseid's coming. Now, whether he's in Justice League Part 1 or 2, excuse me, who knows? But I think that it's going to be very intense. We get to see at the end of the film when Lex Luthor is in prison that he is completely losing his mind. He's ding, ding, which is the sound of the mother box. People have said the dinging sound he's doing at the end is the mother box sound. Now, I'm not sure if he saw footage, if the Kryptonian ship has footage of not Doomsday, but of Darkseid. But it sounded like to me that he created Doomsday because he felt like maybe Batman and Superman were going to die fighting each other or whatever. Or Superman will die fighting Batman because Batman will kill him with the spear of kryptonite. And that Doomsday was created to fight Darkseid whenever he shows up. I'm not really sure, but that's what I imply from it. But yeah, Lex Luthor, Jesse Eisenberg, interesting performance. He really went over the top, and the more the film goes, he's getting more and more crazy. He's showing more of that crazy side to him. And also interesting enough that his father was actually the real Lex Luthor. He's Lex Luthor's son, which everyone thought he was, and so it's kind of confirmed he is Lex Luthor's son in the film. Let me take a sip of the drink again. We are over 36 minutes, and my throat is still killing me, so we'll get back to this thing in a second. Next thing we're going to talk about is the Justice League cameos. Now, people have been complaining about this, saying it was shoehorned in, it was done in a poor way. In my personal opinion, it makes sense. The Justice League cameos were brought in through LexCorp. What that tells me that Lex Luthor was not only looking at Superman. Okay, he had intel on Wonder Woman, Flash, Cyborg, and Aquaman. And I liked it because it showed that Lex Luthor was searching for other metahumans. He was trying to have them, like, he had all these different files. And we saw one video of Cyborg and Aquaman and the Flash, but he had multiple other folders of information, I guess, from these metahumans. But basically, he was trying to track them down. He had them all in his, database, because I'm guaranteeing that he was probably trying to find ways to stop all of them as well, because, you never know what Aquaman or the Flash or Cyborg could possibly do. They're heroes, but, in Lex Luthor's mind, they could change and become evil, so I have to stop them. So I bet he would have found ways to stop all of them as well. And, of course, that's how they incorporated Wonder Woman, because she was also in the database from Lex Luthor, showing her a photo from 1918 and how she's looking perfectly the same in 2016, 2015, whatever this movie takes place, whatever year, that she did back in 1918. Same look, same everything. She does not age. So it was cool to see that. Now, people have also complained that maybe, because it's already inferred by the email and at the end of the film when they're having a discussion, Bruce Wayne and Princess Diana, about the other metahumans, we have to find them, that Bruce Wayne's already seen it, but people complain we should have seen Bruce Wayne looking at them instead of Gal Gadot, Princess Diana. We should have seen Bruce Wayne looking at those files. But seeing the Flash little video was pretty cool. He stopped that robber just like the Flash should. It was pretty cool to see. It was cool to see the store was like the lights were flickering and you saw flashes of lightning. It was pretty cool to see that, like, oh my god, like that was pretty badass. And it's just like, it's a really different take because the Flash on the CW with Grant Gustin as Barry Allen, when he runs through buildings and stuff, the lights don't flicker and all that kind of stuff. But to see this version of the Flash is going to be able to mess with lighting and all this kind of stuff with his flashes of lightning coming off his body when he's running, that's pretty cool. Seeing Aquaman's cameo, Jason Momoa, was pretty awesome. That like robot with the camera like zooming in on him in the little area, and he comes out with a trident and he slams into that thing and flies it back. That's pretty awesome. There's actually a video online on YouTube, and it was taken down by WB, but it was still awesome. You get to hear a crowd reaction to when he actually swims up and gets into the light of that camera, and people are like, "Oh my God, Aquaman!" People are cheering and clapping. It was pretty awesome. The Cyborg one was very weird, but it showed kind of the birth of him becoming Cyborg. With people were saying, is that a mother box that kind of attached itself to him? I'm not really sure. It could have been, but I think it was just some kind of. It was basically the origin of Cyborg the way it's supposed to be with a machine or whatever. It was just going to work that way because the guy, his father was talking about, that this is going to work, and we're gonna this thing, and he brings it over and attaches him to himself, and you see where it's creating his body. We didn't get to see the full look of Cyborg, but then again, we didn't get to see the Flash suit either. So, all teases for the Justice League film. So the Justice League cameos, pretty awesome, pretty badass. Can't wait to see them in Justice League Part 1. Next thing we're going to talk about is the Knightmare Batman scene, and we all know what the scene is. Mad Max Batman. Also, the Omega symbol scene. Holy crap. This is the biggest tease for Darkseid. Now, people have complained about this because they put out this photo a while back. Excuse me. And people are like, oh my god, it's too soon. It's too soon. I think they're teasing Darkseid because Darkseid's going to be in Justice League Part 1. I think he's going to be the big bad of these two Justice League films that are coming up pretty soon. But seeing that Omega symbol in the scene, oh my god, it's brutal. I thought for a second, like, holy shit. Are they going to show Darkseid in this? Are they going to show him? We get to see Parademons. We got to see them, so that was good enough for me because when we saw Parademons in the trailer, but I didn't expect them to get close in the scene. They get closer. Actually, one of them punches Batman in the head and knocks him down. And what this kind of nightmare implies that Superman is under control of Darkseid because you see Darkseid's symbol, and then Superman is there, and he kills off these two guys that are hanging up next to Batman. Pretty brutal to watch him use his vision, his eye vision blast, whatever you call it, and oh my god, it's brutal. Like, oh man, just kills those two guys, and then he goes and he puts his hand on Batman's chest and slams his hand into his body, basically killing him. Oh, brutal nightmare! Holy crap, it was so brutal. But the Knightmare Batman scene was great. A lot of great fighting. We got to see Batman use a gun, which I knew at that point. I mean, I knew it wasn't real because it randomly was happening. Like, why is Batman out in the middle of the desert with a different outfit? And then you see the Omega symbol, and they're like, okay, this is the Nightmare sequence. This is not real. But when he used a gun and shot people, I'm surprised that my audience that I was with on the Thursday night preview screening last night as I'm recording this podcast, I'm surprised people didn't go, what the fuck? Why is he killing people? Why is he shooting people? I'm surprised people just sat there and just, said, all right, he's shooting people. I mean, he's against guns, but I guess. And, I mean, obviously we find out it's not real. But the Nightmare Batman scene, ooh. Great fighting scene with Batman, but also it is the ultimate tease for Darkseid. And I'm glad I'm glad they kept that in the film. I knew they would with the picture being released, but that scene's pretty badass. Seeing all those parademons, pretty freaking awesome. The next thing I want to talk about is the editing in this film. Now, a lot of critics and even some audience members have been complaining about the editing of this movie is very bad. For me personally, I don't see it as god-awful and terrible, but it could have been greatly improved, in my personal opinion. There were some scenes that were cut off rapidly, some scenes that could have extended longer, and there was even a scene or two in this movie that could have been cut out completely in order to flesh out some other scenes that just kind of abruptly end or they abruptly begin. And it kind of just, makes you go, what the hell's going on? One in particular scene that, I like the scene because it really set up Bruce Wayne and Princess Diana, was that other party, not the first party where she steals the device from Bruce Wayne when he's trying to get information from LexCorp, but the other party where, he says, I've known a lot of women like you, and she turns around and smiles. You've never met a woman like me, because I'm Wonder Woman. That party scene, I think that it kind of abruptly starts. Like, it could have easily began maybe like another little intro to that scene where you see her walking into this party, and then you see her walk up to the thing, and you see Bruce Wayne, he looks over and sees her entering the party, and then he starts following her and all that kind of stuff. That would have set up the scene better, in my personal opinion, because it would have made more sense, like, all of a sudden she's at a party, and then he just walks up and goes, hey, yo, Princess Diana, what's up? He didn't say that, but if he did, that's the whole point. It was just kind of random. But I think that overall, if you follow the story and you pay attention, my voice is starting to tell me stop talking, but I'm going to keep talking. I still got more stuff to talk about. Is that I think that if you really pay attention to the story, the movie as it is, okay, the 3-hour version might be a lot more smoother, and that's what's rumored, that it's going to be a lot smoother of a film, the 3-hour version. But if you really pay attention to the story, and you look at each scene, all that kind of stuff, and you're really paying attention to what the dialogue and what's happening and what's continuing, and you're jumping back and forth between this and 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 this, you will be in line. You'll be understanding. It will completely understanding. But I think that the editing could have been better with just a couple of scenes added, a couple more seconds at the end or the beginning, where you get more of a little setup. And I think ultimately that some scenes that were edited were obviously cut for time because they didn't want the film to be a 3-hour Batman. They were getting a 3-hour version, but they didn't want a 2-hour, 40-minute version. They wanted a small, as much as they could cut without completely destroying this film, because this film could have been edited a lot worse. But the way it turned out, got to give them props. I mean, there's still a ton of stuff in this film, but I'm assuming that there's going to be even a ton more in the 30 extra minutes we'll be seeing on the Blu-ray. So yes, the editing could have been better. I do agree with that, but it's not completely horrible in my personal opinion to the point where you can't watch the film. You can enjoy the film for what it is. Just hopefully that 3-hour version will be able to smooth out those things a lot better. Next thing I do want to talk about right before we wrap this thing up is Zack Snyder. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this is obviously he's the director of the film. He was the director of Man of Steel. He's going to be the director for Justice League Part 1 and Part 2. Now, the reason why I'm really talking about him is because there's been a lot of talks that he should be taken off of Justice League Part 1 and Part 2. Like, he should just be a producer. He should not be directing any more DC films from now on because of what he did with this film. Now, for me personally, in my non-spoiler review, I gave the film a 9 out of 10. Now, obviously, this film could have been a lot better, and it would have been a 10 out of 10. Oh my god, fantastic, epic. But Zack Snyder, and even I will agree to this, but I still enjoyed the story for what it was. I still enjoyed the visuals. I enjoyed the aspect. I just love the film. But you can tell that Zack Snyder is not a story-driven director where he can really direct a story very good. I think that with the help of Ben Affleck there, and Ben Affleck being a Oscar-winning director, that I think Ben Affleck being on the film and being Batman, being Bruce Wayne, having a lot of scenes in the film, that he helped Zack Snyder make the film better in that aspect of trying to film story. Now, it all comes down to your opinion, okay? People have been tweeting out crazy that they love this film and Zack Snyder is amazing. For me personally, he's a good director. I think he could be a better director if he just learned more aspects of trying to film story. But that's just me personally. Should he be taken off of Justice League Part 1? At this point, it's too late. Justice League Part 2? Sure. Take him off as director and put someone else in place. But I feel like with Ben Affleck back on in Justice League Part 1, that I think he'll be able to help there. And I'm thinking that maybe after the responses that this film has been getting. Now, audience responses, majority have been positive. But a lot of critics have been bashing on Zack Snyder. I think that Warner Brothers should keep on Zack Snyder to continue on Justice League Part 1, but they should also bring in a co-director. Now, this has been mentioned before. They should bring in a co-director to help Zack Snyder plan out the film, how to shoot certain scenes that are really dialogue-driven, story-driven, and really make it work. I think that would be the best. But, I mean, if Warner Brothers doesn't, we'll just have to see what Justice League gives us next year. Because, I mean, they'll start shooting soon, and when they start shooting, set photos will get leaked, and then we'll start getting promotion, all that kind of stuff, because the movie comes out in November of 2017, so we're not that far away. So the last thing I want to talk about, actually, hold on, Zack Snyder, I think that he should stay on, but that's just my personal opinion. If you have a different opinion, I completely understand. But I think Zack Snyder should stay on, and I think he will do a lot better with a Justice League film because we've already set all this stuff up in Batman v Superman. Now we actually get to it. I think he could actually make this film work. Now, wrap up. Ending thoughts. Batman v Superman is a great film. I love the film personally. I understand people don't like the film, people hate the film. I get it. I enjoy the film for what it is. I think it personally sets up the DC extended universe. It's to me it's the DC cinematic universe. It sets it up in a great way. I really enjoyed the film. I'm hoping that this film succeeds in box office because that will tell DC that we love this film and we want it to continue. We want this franchise to continue. Now, if this film bombs, I don't think it will, but if it does, Suicide Squad will still come out in August. And Wonder Woman will probably still come out in July of next year. I think it's July of next year. So, at the end of the day, guys, I like the film. Everyone has their own opinions. There are tons of people that love the film, tons of people that don't like the film, tons of people that are disappointed by the film. But I love Batman v Superman. I'm going to go see it again, hopefully this coming Sunday, and if not, at some point next week or next weekend. But I cannot wait for the continuation of the story. I know we're getting Suicide Squad, which is not really a connecting thing to Batman v Superman, but we'll see Bruce Wayne, we'll see Batman, Ben Affleck in the film, so I'm excited for that as well. But there you have it, guys. That is my thoughts, and that is my spoiler review, mostly my spoiler discussion of Batman v Superman. This is the longest podcast I've ever done, and it really took a toll on me, but I think I'll survive. So thank you all so much for listening, and I will see you guys soon with another video. Peace out, everybody.